This is a Fox News Alert. Good evening, good morning here in Vietnam. I'm Brett Baer. We are again coming to you halfway around the world in Hanoi, Vietnam, where the second summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ended in a very different fashion than the first, without an agreement this time. President Trump says he was not willing to give in to North Korea's demand that the U.S. lift all sanctions without an ironclad promise from Kim to eliminate its nuclear arsenal. The North Koreans held an extremely rare press conference a few hours ago to say they only wanted some of the sanctions lifted to get rid of its biggest nuclear site. The two leaders canceled a scheduled lunch and signing ceremony today. Back home, both Democrats and Republicans were giving the president varying degrees of credit for not giving in. But in South Korea's capital, the collapse of the talks was viewed with real disappointment. We have Fox team coverage. Greg Palcott is in Seoul, South Korea, where the country's news agency says the security situation has now turned back to zero. From the Trump administration, resolve about this decision and perhaps optimism about the future, even without another meeting set up on the calendar. We start off here in Hanoi with Chief White House correspondent John Roberts. Hello, John.
Brett, good morning to you. We are now in a game of dueling diplomatic narratives, with both sides blaming the other for the failure of the second U.S.-North Korea summit, and President Trump getting some support from an unlikely corner. The body language between President Trump and Kim Jong-un looked promising. But when it came down to the nuts and bolts of negotiation, President Trump walked away from the table.
I could have signed an agreement today, and then you people would have said, oh, what a terrible deal, what a terrible thing he did. Now you have to be prepared to walk.
Kim Jong-un offered to close the sprawling Yongbyon nuclear facility, the prime source of fissile material for North Korea's nuclear weapons program. But in exchange, according to President Trump, he wanted all of the sanctions against the regime lifted.
The Yongbyon facility and all of its scope, which is important for sure, still leaves missiles, still leaves warheads and weapon systems.
They were willing to denuke a large portion of the areas that we wanted, but we couldn't give up all of the sanctions for that.
At a rare midnight press conference in Hanoi, North Korea's foreign minister disputed the president's claim, insisting Kim made a realistic proposal.
What we proposed was not the removal of all sanctions, but their partial removal. The United States insisted that we should take one more step besides the dismantlement of nuclear facilities in Yongbyon area. Therefore, it became crystal clear that the United States was not ready to accept our proposal.
In an even more rare moment of agreement with the president, the Democratic leadership said he was right to walk away. Chuck Schumer tweeting, a deal that fell short of complete denuclearization would have only made North Korea stronger and the world less safe. And this from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Really, it's good that the president did not give him anything for the little that he was proposing.
It would typically be unheard of for an American president to travel halfway around the world to make a deal, then have it fall apart. But there is no playbook for a leader-to-leader engagement with North Korea.
I think everyone had hoped we could do just a little bit better, but the departure was with an agreement that we would continue to work on what has been an incredibly difficult problem.
What comes next is unclear. President Trump says the summit came to a premature close on friendly terms.
This wasn't a walk away like you get up and walk out. No, this was very friendly. We shook hands.
The president continued his praise of Kim Jong-un and at one point appeared to absolve him of any complicity in the death of Otto Warmbier.
I don't believe he knew about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly, but he knew the case very well, but he knew it later.
But even lawmakers who backed the president's decision to walk away from the table found that one hard to swallow.
That'd be a lie. Kim Jong lied. I mean, he had to know. Nothing happens in that country without him knowing.
While both sides are expected to keep talking, President Trump made no prediction as to when the next summit with Kim Jong-un might be. The president said at his press conference it could be soon, maybe not for a long time. Certainly something for Kim to think about. Brett?
John Roberts just down the road here in Hanoi. John, thanks.
A lot going on Capitol Hill today. The circus came to town. The president's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, testified for most of the daylight hours. Everybody carried it. You probably heard snippets in the Uber on the way to work. You've got a real job. So we watched every moment because we're paid to do that. And most of the day was devoted to the question of Trump's personal character. Now, people in Washington never tire of being shocked by what an incredibly bad man Donald Trump is. They're incredibly good people, and they can just hardly believe his flaws. They sat open-mouthed in the Congress today as Michael Cohen described his former boss, brace yourselves now, as a bit of a con man who has at times overstated his personal wealth. In private, Trump apparently has said offensive things. At one point, Michael Cohen claims Trump used a straw buyer to bid up a portrait of himself at a charity auction. He wanted his picture to go for the highest price. Whoa. Are you shocked yet? Can you believe it? Of course you can. This is exactly the man we knew back in 2015 when he descended the famous escalator, and yet millions of people voted for him anyway. His character was not the point. The point of today's hearings was not his character either. It was supposed to be Russian collusion and obstruction of justice. Those are the topics that have completely derailed the American government for the past 2 years. And on those subjects, we actually did learn quite a bit today. Here's one example. About a month ago, the cat blog BuzzFeed ran an article that claimed Trump had ordered Michael Cohen to lie to the Congress. That's a big deal. It's a crime. And so immediately the hysterics in the Congress and on cable news went bonkers. Impeachment! Indictment! Life in prison! But did that actually happen? Well, since Cohen was there in person, he was able to conclusively answer that question today, and he did. Watch.
Mr. Cohen, you stood before multiple congressional committees before today and raised your right hand and swore an oath to be honest. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you lied to those congressional committees. Is that correct?
Previously?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
You stated that Trump never directed you to lie to Congress. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it looks like Trump will not be going to jail for suborning perjury after all. Darn, foiled again. Look for a retraction in your latest edition of BuzzFeed. You'll find it just below the 15 cats that look like Ruth Bader Ginsburg listicle. Look carefully. But what about Russian blackmail? You've been hearing about that for years. Trump, they have told you again and again, has somehow been compromised by the Russians. And that's why he's been spying for them. Putin has something horrible and incriminating on Donald Trump. He must. A picture of the president in a Batman costume, maybe. Or a videotape with hookers doing something weird. Certainly Michael Cohen would know about that kind of thing. That's his world. Luckily, a sitting member of Congress asked Cohen about it directly today. Watch.
Are you aware of anything that the president has done at home or abroad that may have subjected him to or may subject him to extortion or blackmail?
I am not, no.
Okay. Are you aware of any videotapes that may be the subject of extortion or blackmail?
I've heard about these tapes for a long time. I've had many people contact me over the years. I have no reason to believe that that tape exists.
The great Jamie Raskin of suburban Maryland, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Mr. Raskin, for clearing that up. So the P-tape is not real. There goes the juiciest part of the Trump dossier, which you'll remember was yet another highly publicized scoop from, yes, BuzzFeed. Could be time to get back to those cat videos, fellas. But wait. What about the trip to Prague that Michael Cohen supposedly took? That was part of his collusion with the dark forces of the Russian Empire. That was in the dossier as well. BuzzFeed told us about it. Surely Cohen would admit it now. He's heading to prison. He's got nothing to lose. Well, Cohen was asked about that Prague trip today, and here's what he said.
You ever been to Prague?
I've never been to Prague.
Never have.
I've never been to the Czech Republic.
You might balance my time.
This is where it gets confusing. Never been to Prague. This is the point at which what they call the narrative starts to break down a little bit. If Michael Cohen never went to Prague, as BuzzFeed and Adam Schiff and the entire primetime lineup of MSNBC have told us repeatedly that he did, then how exactly did Michael Cohen collude with the Russians to steal the 2016 presidential election from its rightful winner, Hillary Clinton? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida, as incisive an interviewer as the Democrats have, wondered that too. Here's the exchange.
Based on what you know, would Mr. Trump, or did he, lie about colluding and coordinating with the Russians at any point during the campaign?
So as I stated in my testimony, I wouldn't use the word colluding. Was there something odd about the back and forth praise with President Putin? Yes, but I'm not really sure that I can answer that question in terms of collusion.
Oh, wait, so there's no collusion, there's no Russian blackmail, there's no obstruction of justice, there are none of the things that our entire media class has spent the last 2 years huffing and speculating wildly about. Keep in mind that Michael Cohen is Trump's personal lawyer of 10 years. He now hates Donald Trump and would like to destroy him. He has said that again and again. If Michael Cohen had the dime, he would drop it. But he doesn't. There is nothing there. It was all a lie. Can we go home now? Nope. We've got 2 more days of stuff just like this. 2 more days of exchanges like this one, where members of Congress feel that they're not only dumber than you thought they were, but they're a lot creepier.
Can he be blackmailed because of his financial and business ventures, including by foreign governments?
Is there a love child?
There is not, to the best of my knowledge.
So you would.
Do you have any knowledge of President Trump abusing any controlled substances?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Do you have any knowledge of President Trump arranging any health care procedures for any women not in his family?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Is there a love child? Is he a dope head? Did he pay for abortions? No, 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 no. By the end, you start feeling kind of bad for Michael Cohen, honestly. He's not a genius. Anyone who knows him will affirm that. He's in his 50s now, and he's headed to prison. And that's a long way from where he expected to be. Cohen showed up in Washington 2 years ago, anticipating that he'd be the kind of guy, the kind of mover and shaker, who'd be welcome at any restaurant in town. Part the seas for Michael Cohen. Now he's going to be eating sloppy joes off a metal tray with 1,000 other creeps in identical polyester uniforms in the lockup. So take the politics out of it for a minute if you can. Let's be honest, this is a sad story. Michael Cohen is a broken and desperate man, but nobody cares. Democrats cheered for his conviction on ludicrous, absurd campaign finance charges, as if paying off somebody's girlfriend is a campaign finance violation. It's laughable, but they don't care. Now they're squeezing whatever use they can out of Michael Cohen as he shuffles off to his cell. What do the rest of us get out of this? We learn that Trump is vain and vulgar. Okay. What do we do with that information? Is it supposed to make us support open borders, late-term abortion, the war in Syria, the Green New Deal? Will it make the drug epidemic go away? Will it make the suicide rate drop? Will it make housing affordable in the cities? What does it have to do with anything? Well, it doesn't have anything to do with anything. And that is exactly the point of it. That's why this is going on forever. The more time they waste yelping about Trump's charity auction scam in his naughty language in private, the less time they have to explain why they've run this country into the ground and gotten rich doing it. This is a distraction, and we are falling for it, for the record.